Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. In this video, I have from Detroit, Michigan, now living in Chicago, Kevin L. Davis. What
What
up,
up,
Kevin?
though? Right.
So we going
Little Blade Icewood.
Always got to
Mhm.
represent. So we're gonna hop right in. Tell us what your background is, and all that stuff. Give a little bio.
Yep. My name's Kevin Davis, born and raised in Detroit. Graduated from Redford High School. Went to Eastern Michigan University, and then finished up my degree at Colorado State in marketing. For the past maybe 15 years or so, I've been started out as a graphic designer and kind of worked my way up to a point now where I'm director of marketing for a large healthcare system here in Illinois. Still designing, still creating, still representing the city, all of the above.
Yeah, I'm gonna be bringing them back for some marketing stuff, but we're gonna concentrate on leadership right now. So, first question: Did you show any leadership qualities in your childhood, K through 12?
Yeah, it's funny. I was asking my wife about. I was trying to think back, like, have I always just kind of been that? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, thinking all the way back to elementary school, um, school programs. I was always a speaker, always representing the class in some regard. And I was a freehand artist, so I always design our program covers and all that type of stuff, speaking for the students. High
Right.
school, National Honor Society, all of that stuff. And then I was, a captain on a baseball team, golf team, all of that. So I
Mm-hmm.
always find some way. I mean, I want to be the leader, but I find some way and it
Right.
ends up becoming that. So I've kind of embraced that about myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say yes.
So, who are some of your favorite leaders?
Favorite leaders. Um, I would say number one would be my dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's very pragmatic, very diplomatic, very unbiased at all costs, which I
Mm-hmm.
hated. I hated as a kid uh, because if someone
Give
said
me
I
what
did
I want to
something,
hear, man.
yeah, when as a kid, if my dad, somebody told my dad I did something, he'd be like, "You probably did. It's 50% probability you did." And I'm like, take my side. But as I got older and I have kids and all that, I'm like, they probably did it. Um, but just his leadership style and just being consistent and clear at all times, but also just being just pragmatic and just unbiased. That was huge to me growing up, and that's kind of how I lead now. I would say also cliche Barack Obama. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just his ability to stay calm and poised under pressure, not feeding into responding to things that are said
Mm-hmm.
about you, things that, I mean, your natural inclination is to respond to things or want to,
Right.
but you have the decision to do it or not. And most of the time, he just chose, I'm just going to keep it moving.
Right.
Um, Beyond that, I would say uh, Reggie Lewis passed away about
Mm-hmm.
20 something, 27 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
First black billionaire, and just
Mm-hmm.
how he led from example and just being consistent and playing a little bit bigger than he was
Mm-hmm.
at all times, but still being able to deliver. So I'll say those are kind of like my three, my
Yeah.
three kind of pillars when it comes to leadership as far as black men, well, in general. Yeah.
I know you know a lot about, Detroit leadership. Do you have any favorite Detroit leaders?
Dennis Archer. Dennis Archer.
Mm-hmm.
That's my mayor. And
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it because he reminded me a lot of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's there about the business, and I think what I appreciated about him was the way he came into his role as mayor of Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
following Coleman Young. Coleman Young had been in office since 1973
Yeah.
until 90, early 90s, 92 or something like that, 91, 92, something like that, when Dennis Archer came into office. He did have to kind of
Mm-hmm.
mend some relationships, and whereas Coleman Young had
Mm-hmm.
the thought of being more of a chocolate city and self-reliant, Dennis Archer's like,
Mm-hmm.
look, we need all hands on deck to kind of make some of these things happen. So being able to relate to the people, but then also know how to play this high end corporate game, um, and just being trustworthy. You know, I think that at that age for me, I think I was gonna be 13 or 14. I remember I was in middle school, so I think it was like 92. That stood out to me then, and it stood out to me now when I read his book last year. I have way more respect. He did a lot more than I thought he did. But yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy right there.
So, in your experience, because you have like a lot of experience, what is the difference between leadership in a company, a nonprofit organization, and a volunteer organization?
I don't think they should be kind of broken into different categories. At the end of the day, it's what are you providing, who needs to do it, and how do you deliver on it? And that's nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations. Now, I think it all comes down to understanding people's motivations. Why are they there, and how can we help you be more focused on your end result here, which ultimately benefit the company in the long run. And I think that's an issue that I think people that's an issue that I feel is very prevalent in a nonprofit space. You know, they hear, oh, that's too corporate, or in a for-profit space, and you bring certain things up, they're like, oh, that's too social enterprisey. And it's like, no, you need to have all of that. And just thinking about, my experience in the for-profit world, and it wasn't in a marketing, capacity. It was just me working in various roles in the for-profit space, bringing some of those best practices into the nonprofit space. It's kind of met with some resistance, and people felt that that's not how we do things. And I'm like, why shouldn't we? We should have standard operating procedures and best practices and ways to effectively measure our work and our outcomes and all of those things. And so there's always that bit of corporate clash. So I don't see it as any different. When you think about it, being a leader in those spaces, you got to motivate your people. You got to be transparent.
Right.
You have to be trustworthy. And it's just be relatable. And I just don't think that they should be broken down into those different spaces.
So, specifically between, people getting paid and, volunteer work, how do you get the buy-in? Okay. So I feel like, at my original chapter, I'm a Zeta, Kevin's a Sigma. And, at my chapter, I got spoiled for, people doing what they're supposed to do in volunteer work. And so as I've been a leader in other organizations, and some of it is my leadership capabilities, and some of it is the people. But I've sometimes struggled with people joining a volunteer organization and not having kind of the same leverage of, I pay you for this. So what do you see as the ways to get that buy-in for both? I mean, there's less struggle with the people who are actually doing it for the right reasons, but the people who are doing it maybe for the wrong reasons or are inexperienced. Like, what advice do you have for that?
I had to think about how I wanted to frame what I want to say. But at the end of the day, I won't let someone's volunteer status trump my expectation of work outcomes.
Hold on, pause right quick, because your video was kind of. So start your answer over again.
Okay. I won't ever let someone's volunteer status get in the way of my expectations for them. Even in the fraternity, I'm like, hey, I'd rather have 3 people to do this than 15 of y'all standing around doing nothing. And I think also when you think about the nonprofit space and volunteer opportunities, you have to be clear what the expectations are, and just say, hey, this is what needs to happen. By when, this is the way it needs to be done. And I just need to make sure I have your commitment. And if I have your commitment, I don't need you. And you have to be comfortable with having those conversations with people to say, hey, you know what? I know this is a volunteer opportunity, which means we're limited on time and resources, but this is what I need from you. And, if it gets to that point, you just say, you know what, thank you for your service, but, we're going to continue moving on with this without you, or finding a different place for them to help out. I think many times people get involved with volunteer opportunities for the optics,
Yeah.
and being able to post a picture, say they were in the middle of it, but somebody still does have to manage the volunteers in that group. So the
Yeah.
first thing I would say is don't volunteer for opportunities if you're really not going to be into it, if you really can't commit
Mm-hmm.
to it, and you're not going to be receptive to feedback. I've
Right.
experienced that, and I'm volunteering. You're gonna tell me what to do, and it's like, yes, but there's I work here, and you're volunteering. There's a certain way things need to be done, and if you can't do it that way, then we can't. Thank you for your time thus far, but we won't be needing you going forward. So you do have
Right.
to double down on that as well. But I put it more so on the volunteer to make sure you're doing things that align with a real goal and interest of yours. Um, and that's something that I had to kind of accept over the years. I was kind of involved in a number of different
Yeah.
opportunities, and it wasn't necessarily because it was something that I wanted to do. It was because Deborah asked me, and I'm like, cool. But then
Mm-hmm.
but now when it's time to do it, I'm complaining because I don't want to be
Yeah.
here.
Right.
So limiting my time to the types of things,
Yeah.
to the opportunities that I take on, but also looking at it as, if I get involved with this, how does this advance my cause, improve my brand, or further, if I have a community interest, if I'm interested in education
Mm-hmm.
or whatever in the community, how does this help that? And if I don't have an answer for it, then I shouldn't do it. But leading volunteers, you have to be able to have those difficult conversations to say, yes, you are not getting paid. Yes, you are here with
Mm-hmm.
on your time. But we're going to move you over
Mm-hmm.
to this other assignment, or, just reiterate what the expectations or outcomes are and just confirm that
Mm-hmm.
they're in alignment with it. If not, no harm, no foul. We just got to keep moving.
Yeah. Um, Something that I feel I did a disservice to me is because your leadership also kind of brings in your personal stuff. So, and being called, mean a lot for being a direct person, for being an introvert, whatever the reasons are, and feeling like you're actually a nice person. In my last leadership position, it was a balance of trying to rebuild the organization, so having to kind of start from not that many people being involved, and I need your help. So I don't want to kind of be mean, so to speak, and shoot you away because I need help, but also I need you to do what you need to do. And so luckily, on the other side of that, I've come to the realization that if you're trying to be nice, they gonna not like you anyway. So you
Right.
might as well be yourself
Right.
and tell them what they need to hear. Because man, I did myself such a disservice trying to be nice, and it's just like, I really need you to tell y'all about yourselves right now, but I need you to stay because we already have a light ship, and I need all that. I'm already doing 5 things,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just like, man, I should have. And it ends up being that when you do that, people respect you,
Mm-hmm.
or they just leave.
Yeah. And I think
So,
when it comes to that, and you're trying to lead an organization, and this comes from experience. Uh,
mm-hmm.
Part of it is just really being clear on what the direction is that you're trying to take everyone on, and reiterating their importance in the role and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this is my vision going forward. And I hate it sometimes because you have to like suck it up, and you might
Mm-hmm.
not like somebody, but at the end of the day, I would rather I'll start over essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You have your thoughts and feelings about people, especially if it's an org and you work your way up. And so you
Yeah.
already have your feelings and your own personal encounters with people. But when you get into a leadership position, it kind of changes.
Yeah.
And I take it from a place of, I'm going to hit the reset button because I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't your leader before. So I don't know what it was. This is like a management thing they kind of teach you over the years, is never
Yeah.
assume that someone's the way they are is because of the way they are. They're that way for a reason. And so part of your
Yeah.
responsibility is to figure out what are their motivations, what caused them
Mm-hmm.
to act this way. And it could be a leader before them was terrible, was a dictator, didn't
Yeah.
explain things clearly, or also didn't explain how, didn't convey their level of investment in that person. So you have to just kind of start over. This is what I'm trying to do. I
Yeah.
need you to do these things, and give them that sense of ownership. And you can still be nice and deliver, and and come back and say, these are the deliverables and these things that I need to make happen or expect from you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do it enough and they truly just aren't a good person, they'll self-select out, and that's what you want. And no one can ever see you are mean or nasty. You started over. You had a clear plan. You showed them where they fit in the plan. These are the clear expectations I expect of you. And then you have to have those difficult conversations or courageous conversations, the new buzzword, along the way. So that first checkpoint, when you see something, nip it in the bud. I'm not one of those people that likes to let it continue to go on. Now that's my fault. It's not fair to that person. So we'll have that conversation. Hey, you didn't turn in your meeting notes prior to the meeting. And, I've had to do this where, hey, if you don't have the meeting notes into me by Thursday where I can review them, they will not be on the screen at the meeting, which means you didn't complete your report. And what that means is, based on the expectations of your role, you have to present your meeting notes at every meeting to stay in. So if you just missed one, that means you just missed a 12th of your meetings. And you get to manage it that way and just, hey, they didn't meet the deadlines. And so I had to move forward in the best interest of the membership or whatever way the organization is set up, and respect everybody's time. And they just didn't do it. I gave them the opportunity.
Yeah, and one of my previous leadership positions, there was several instances over the years in that position that I wanted to get rid of people because either they weren't ready for prime time or they weren't doing their job. And, in certain areas, you have to get your documentation ready. You have to make sure that you told them what they needed to do multiple times and stuff like that. And luckily, every single time they got rid of themselves. I was like, thank you, because I did not want to have this conversation. Like, you're supposed to have the conversation as a leader, but I'm like, dang it, I got to get rid of this person. And in a volunteer capacity, I've seen people try to like peacock, and it's like, but you're not doing anything. You don't have any leverage. So I was lucky enough to everybody got rid of themselves who I really wanted to get rid of. So that was my luck. What is the power of volunteer work? So I know you've done Phi Beta Sigma at so many levels. You're part of 100 Black Men, and I'm sure you're part of other volunteer organizations. So particularly in our community of people sometimes not seeing it, what is the power of volunteer work?
I don't think I'll ever get away from volunteer work for a number of reasons. One, the older I get, the more introspective I become on just kind of things that didn't take place when I was younger, types of people I wish I had known, or opportunities that I wish were afforded to me. And so now as I get older and I'm entering more spaces that I never thought I'd be in, I feel like it's my obligation to continue to do, volunteer work in these organizations. And also that was the example that my dad set. I'm busy over here with the family and all these things, but I'm also committed back to the community.
Right.
And what that looked like for us was my dad was a VP at a bank, and my mom was, terminally ill with lupus, and we have 3 kids, and he's a VP at the bank during the day, and he's cleaning up an office building at night, trying to, cover medical bills and all that, but he still made time for junior achievement. And so that was my experience growing up. But then once I got into high school and the honor society and all of that, like that kind of changed it all, because I was now kind of grownish. But thinking about how it's helped me personally, I can say specifically, becoming a Sigma. I was a graphic designer all the way up, and then when I became a Sigma, the brothers took a gamble on me and said, "Hey, we need you to design these things for us." And that was helpful because I didn't have a career in design. So how do you build your portfolio and you don't have the job?
Right.
And so like here, they started sending me all types of business, and essentially the fraternity is why my business is the way it is now. I can fully put that on the brotherhood because they took a chance. They let me have those opportunities to kind of play around and learn with some of the things that they were doing, not only in the organization, but that it became their side businesses and personal projects for them. And it all became referral based. And so I was able to learn and grow on my own time while getting paid for it, while building my my portfolio. So when it was time for me to start looking for jobs, I actually had a nice little book to go through. But beyond just the the actual work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have that skill or that talent, so as a designer, you need, or creative, you need to have that creative portfolio. But in the
Mm-hmm.
volunteer space, it did teach me about people. It taught me about volunteering, talk, about
Right.
managing volunteers and um, being a steward of the community. It taught me a lot
Mm-hmm.
of leadership things. It taught me a little bit about program management and program, event management. Seeing these things at a distance, and as I grew, then I became the committee person that's over this event or whatever. So you start to learn these things, and I'm able to bring those back into my career. And so now, even to this point, with so many years in the game, I'm
Mm-hmm.
still volunteering. So like I said, I'm a member of the 100 Black Men of Chicago, and with that, I lend my creative talents to the marketing and branding of the organization. Whereas I don't have time to do the mentoring that happens every week, I still
Mm-hmm.
get back by volunteering
Right.
my creative talents, but then it also benefits me because it keeps me sharp, and then it keeps
Right.
me on the ground because I'm designing things. I'm reading the copy. I'm reading these reports and all these different things. I
Mm-hmm.
know what's going on in the community, and so
Right.
fast forward, thinking about Sigma. Now I'm the international director of publicity and branding for the
Mm-hmm.
entire organization, which means
Mm-hmm.
all of the marketing and branding to some capacity comes through me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that taught me a number of things. Being on the board, so I'm seeing how the board operates, which is much different from a smaller nonprofit board. So I'm seeing that. I'm seeing how these
Right.
things are created. I'm developing policy that impacts hundreds, 100,000 men across the world at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to now learn how to roll this out. And
Yeah.
so the way that kind of benefited me, when I worked at North Park University, I was a
Mm-hmm.
part of the branding team, which taught me how to
Mm-hmm.
brand, how to develop and go through all the research and roll
Mm-hmm.
out a strong brand, and more importantly, include that educational piece where we have to go to different
Mm-hmm.
stakeholders, groups. So now, fast forward when I got into the roles of fraternity, I had to do that
Mm-hmm.
same thing, but on a higher scale. And so I did
Nice.
that in 2017, starting out. And when I got my job now, I was able to use those experiences with the fraternity on that larger scale to show that I could lead
Mm-hmm.
this organization, lead these efforts, show some sort of um, show some sort of wins and successes. And that helped me go
Mm-hmm.
from working at an organization that had a $10 million budget, which is where I left last year, to working at an organization now that has a $70 million budget, because I
Yeah.
was able to kind of scaffold my personal experiences plus organizational experiences. So it teaches you a whole lot. And it taught me way more about the nonprofit space. So now I look at things differently. I look at where I give my money a little bit differently because I'm able to scrutinize those books a little bit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to creating new programs in the community, it teaches you how to develop a bit of an assessment, a needs assessment, and then once it's
Mm-hmm.
going, program evaluation look like. So that volunteer work, it can take you in so many levels. If you just want to be the base level, kind of do the work and pass out some food or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, that's fine. But you do have those opportunities to continue to go up, and it can benefit you in one organization if you're looking to join another. If you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at if you're looking at possibly joining a board of directors, which the further I get in my career, you learn that that's where all of those relationships are made. It's
Yeah.
not sure it's on the golf course here and there and all of that, but it's really people want to have a common thread of philanthropy with you. And so how do you build
Yeah.
that? It starts with that basic volunteer experience, and then it just kind of goes from there.
Yeah, I've seen that person, like not with me in particular, but there was a previous president of our young professionals in New Orleans where once people see you can get it done, then they give you
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And so that opened the doors to him being on so many boards in the city of New Orleans, where it's like, okay, now you're getting indoors where you're seeing how the other folk work,
And
and seeing things you might not have seen. Yeah.
beyond the portfolio piece, if you're not a creative,
Mhm.
this also helps you build just out your personal brand when you start to think about
Mhm.
ultimately your personal brand is what you project and what you put out there. What do you want to be known for? What is your value proposition? That's your personal brand. So being able to do, take advantage of some of these volunteer opportunities, it allows you to kind of build up your inventory. I've done this type of work in this community. I've learned these types of things. Um, and it helps you just build that brand out. It gives you a bit more to add to your story, which I think everybody should. You can't just tie it up in your, expect it to be in your career. You need to have a whole 360 of your personal brand and your reputation versus just kind of trying to figure it out on your own. You can do it, but it'll take you a lot longer, take way more steps.
Yeah. And speaking of your reputation, from personal experience, I know the references you list on your resume are not the only references. If you put a volunteer organization on your resume, somebody could know somebody that has worked with that organization. And now, because I've received a phone call where somebody put a previous organization I was in on their resume, and they're like, and they call, oh, do you know this person? They put this organization that you're a part of. And I'm like, yes, that person has given me hell. but I'm also the type of person where I'm not petty. So I will list I'm diplomatic. I will list the positive things they did, but I will also warn you on the trouble that I've had with them. So yeah. And so people just do not realize, like, you coming into this organization and you're treating people badly. And particularly with, New Orleans being a small city. I mean, every city can end up being a small city.
Chicago's big and small.
Right. But you can do yourself a disservice because you don't know who somebody else knows. So this person is applying for a job and they don't know that I'm being contacted, and you have been giving me an uphill battle, and I'm luckily being nice enough to not go in like I to go in. So
one of the things that I do enjoy, and I mean, if you know me, you know I'm all about marketing and building relationships and networking, rather not marketing. More so marketing, yes, but I meant networking.
Yeah.
And it's very rare that someone applies for a role on my team or in my organization, and I am any more than 2 phone calls away. If mostly one. Because I'm going to look you up and just kind of see, because I get it. Your resume can only tell you so much. And so I give people that benefit of the doubt and say, you know what, and there's so many rules, or it can only be 1 page and it can be 2, which is all subjective. That's cool. But I know I want to be able to look you up because to that point, you may have only had 1 page or 2 page and it wasn't as detailed as, like, so I'll go look you up on LinkedIn. I'll do Google searches. I want to know who you know. I want to know how you're carrying yourself, because ultimately you're going to come into my organization and I need to make sure you're able to carry this out. And I don't have to worry about you going out into the space. You should know how to behave or carry yourself, or at least know how to cover your tracks, whatever. That's a whole separate conversation. But, in most cases, like, I'll look up and I know someone and I'm like, hey, I know you work at this organization. Somebody's applying here. Do you know this person? And you know me. Do you think we'd be a good fit? And they're like, yeah, nope. They wouldn't. And sometimes I'll still follow up with them, but I'll keep that in mind. I'm like, you know me, and you know how how I get down. But the network is small. You're volunteering somewhere, and it's like, oh, you volunteered over there? I know someone over there. Let me make a phone call. And we get back to that point earlier, just about you volunteering to get that on your resume or some photos. And, I've had people that didn't have so great experiences volunteering. Like, oh yeah, this person at my last job, I'm not going to name any names, but we were volunteering with the Chicago Transit Authority. I guess you'd call it, they were volunteering. I wasn't. I was at work. But and I get a phone call from somebody pretty high up at CTA. They're like, yeah, people are out here tripping. And I'm like, what do you mean? So they like sending me like the video images from the cameras at the train station where they were volunteering. They playing around, not listening, going back and forth. And I'm like, see, now I can't even advocate for you when it's time for you to leave our program to get a job anywhere and these resources. And because I saw you show your ass while you was out volunteering. And that travels very fast, you know. So somebody's always watching.
Yeah. Um, so, uh, okay, what have you learned from leading your passion project? So, every year you fundraise for lupus. So, I don't know if you do any other similar things, but what have you learned from doing that?
I will say it really, just to add on what you're saying. So I raise funds every year for Lupus Foundation of America for the walk in memory of my mom who I lost to lupus.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is really my one fundraiser per year.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned from that is people are more likely to support you when they see you have a clear focus.
Mm-hmm.
I have some friends that try to raise funds for every single thing. And so it's
Yeah.
like, are you just asking us to raise money, or is this your one thing? And if it's your one thing, I can help you because I know you're trying to make an impact. So for me, it's really being able to say no to other things and just say, this is my one
Yeah.
thing here. And everyone knows
Mm-hmm.
when May hits, Kevin's coming. Kevin's coming with
Yeah.
the appeal, and I've had a pretty good success rate of every year of raising funds and meeting my goals because people support me and they support my single vision per year.
Yeah.
But what I will say is with that, I did have to learn a bit of balance and time management because
Mm-hmm.
those things will take up your time as well because oftentimes it's committee
Yeah.
driven, which is what it is here in Chicago since we don't have a full chapter. So again, I lend my marketing and communication and design talents to that, and that's it. And I
Mm-hmm.
raise funds. So it's for a good cause, but then I also uh, continue to build my brand by saying I work with the Lupus Foundation of America, which is a
Mm-hmm.
good project, in memory of my mom, but then it also raises
Mm-hmm.
funds. So, you
Right.
got to find a way to make it a win-win-win. But I would say if, people have some kind of projects like that, like some
Mm-hmm.
fundraising or philanthropic projects to try to be as focused as possible. Really
Mm-hmm.
take some time to articulate your why you have chosen that, and why do you want people's support. And
Yeah.
it, never doubt the power of a good story. For me, my hook is I lost my
Mm-hmm.
mom at 9. I lost my mom at 9, and
Mm-hmm.
my goal is I don't want any other kids to have to lose their parent at 9. That was
Mm-hmm.
years ago that I lost my mom. So
Mm-hmm.
I gone from 9 years to 40, 41 years without my mom,
Mm-hmm.
who's never seen my
Mm-hmm.
kids. So that means something to me, and I think that resonates with
Right.
people. Um, so yeah, be consistent and
Yeah.
make sure that it's really something that you want to do and attach your personal brand to as well.
Yeah, you did just say a word that I was going to bring up is like consistency is currency because that's what I learned in, last year was the first year for my YouTube channel where I tried to post a video every week. And, on my social media, particularly on Facebook, I'm always posting animation stuff. So in doing that, I've built my brand of being in animation. And now, I'll have people send me stuff like, oh, I saw this and thought of you and stuff like that. And, 9 times out of 10, because I'm in the
You've
animation
seen
industry,
it.
I've seen it before, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, thank you.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
learned
I know how
like
that goes.
my natural Virgo self is to be like, I already saw this, but I've learned over the years, my evolved
Oh,
Virgo self is to be like, thank
like,
you.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so now I have, even people on Instagram will send me different, like stuff with Marvel doing live drawings or something like that. And sometimes people send me stuff where I'm like, this ain't really what I do, but thank you anyway. But so when you have that that you have that consistency,
Yeah.
I feel is currency. And that last year is where I saw that where, oh, now that I'm being consistent and people
Yeah.
see that I'm always doing it, now people are like, okay, that is you.
So to your point, and especially thinking about my creatives, my fellow creatives out here,
Mm-hmm.
that consistency piece is huge, but there's also a sense of patience that has to come
Mm.
with that. Just like right now, I launched my podcast late March. So I've been trying to post at least once a week. I took this past week off for the holiday. You got to be realistic, take some time off, decompress, disconnect, all of that. But we'll be back this week. And my realistic expectation is, yes, I get some traffic, but it's not going to happen. It's going to take a while for me to really see those numbers shoot up, even though they look decent. But I can't be upset at the traffic. I can't be upset at the engagement. I can't expect people to fully support or buy into what I'm doing, even though they may like me. Because A, it may not be what they're interested in, and B, it also just may not be there yet production wise. Like, you got to be realistic about it. We all think we're the greatest thing in the world, and we have this awesome, this awesome product we put out. And reality is going to take a little time to build it up. So to your point, being consistent, you've been, making these posts every week. I see a lot of it. I see a lot of it. I'm like, man, I need to do something like that. So I hear like real consistent, interviewing everybody. And the traffic and the engagement will come over time. Like, you just have to be patient, because there are tons of people who've launched YouTube channels. There are tons of people who have launched podcasts. And in my experience, those who stay will win. You gotta be consistent and kind of keep it pushing, but you got to throttle your expectations. You're not going to change the game overnight. And being realistic, your friends and family are not going to be your biggest supporters. It's not because they're jealous or anything. It's just, it's not their thing. They like you and they'll click your page and say, cool, but don't expect that engagement from them and them to share all of these things. They'll get tired of it because it's not their thing. So be prepared to build your own audience outside of whatever you're creating.
It's interesting that in my life, I'm the voice of reason, because, whether they're like my family or people I know, they're like always giving me advice. So this is how you can get more subscribers. And I'm like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, usually the person doing it is the one who's like, man, why don't I have more views? Why don't I have more subscribers? But I'm telling other people that, like, I'm okay. Like, because at the end of 2019, I had like 181 subscribers, and now halfway into 2020, I have 300 something. So
which is good, because there's so much clutter. You aren't a big brand. You don't have, I look at some of these small time people, and they have like full studios, and maybe a half-time person, a full-time person, or people that are actually helping them with production. Like, the game is real. Like, even with my podcast, I have to source my talent. I have to write my scripts. I have to share the scripts with them. I have to do the recording, do the editing, do my own promotion. And this is all. And then I'm doing this while preparing for the next week. And then I also have a job, I also have a family. I have all of these types of things. And I think people underestimate how much work goes into putting together a quality product. And if you got 100, I was looking at Apple podcast today. My own podcast popped up in my feed. So I'm like, oh yes, I have 4 5-star reviews. I was so happy because to me, and that someone took the time to support what I was doing. And if you said that to me 10 years ago, I'd have been like, man, this is whack. But maturity has taught me, like, it's going to take a lot longer to build that up, and there's just much more clutter. So if you have 100 and something subscriptions last year, now almost 100% more, or more than 100% increase, like, that's huge. I mean, it is what it is. We aren't influencers out here and sitting online and begging people to like our stuff. It's, if it catches your eye and you like it and it resonates, click like, subscribe, whatever.
Yeah, and the only reason I really keep the number in mind is because YouTube provides certain things at certain levels. So at 1,000 subscribers, I'll have more things unlocked, like monetization. So that's really the only reason you keep.
I'd love to have that little gold logo plaque, which will never happen in my life. What's that? 1 million views or something like that, or a million? They get the nice plaque in the mail.
I believe in you. BlkWmnAnimator said Kev is gonna get that plaque. You heard it here first.
Golden mic or something.
Yeah. So as creatives, I'm sure you've had experience working with a lot of creatives. So I want to talk about leading yourself, because in being a creative, trying to help other people find creatives, because I either refuse to do the skill set or I just don't have the skill set. I've noticed that creatives are creative and they're not business minded. So when all these people are doing freelance, like for example, I helped a guy out in New Orleans. He was looking for animators for it to do a commercial, and he wanted specifically black 2D animators, and then he specifically wanted a certain style. So I was like, well, that's very specific, and I don't really know a lot of people that do that. So I had to take it to Twitter, have somebody retweet it, and we got like a lot of responses. Like a couple people, he reached out to a couple people, and then like one guy responded, but then kind of went ghost, and then the other person just never responded. Like they're like, oh, I'm interested in this, but when you passed on to the person, you're not responding. Or there's been times where I've heard about in the middle of projects, creatives will disappear or not have a communication piece. So what do you have about leading yourself?
Man, I've been all of those. I've been all of those. I've been, man. You think back and like, why did I do that? But
right.
I've been that irresponsible creative where things just snowball, and you go ghost in the middle of a project because you didn't manage your time, or you didn't set up a realistic time schedule, or you took on a project that you weren't really engaged in. You didn't really care about it. And that's the thing too. You have to take on projects that actually are things you're interested in. And it can't just be about money. I know how hard it is, because I've been that poor creative where you're just like, I need to take anything so I can make some money. But I think I don't know how you really crack through that. You really just have to figure, what, I want to be better. I want to be better. I want to make more money. And I think, what I think helped me a lot was reading. Just reading about managing your creative business. And then also reading how my friends will post on social media about creatives and the creatives that ghosted them and were trash. You're like, and, so I think there comes some self-reflection when you start to see that mirror in front of you. But for me, it was reading and then spending time with other, not necessarily creatives, but just small business owners that had their game together. You start to see them. They have their contracts. They have their pricing. There's a lot of things that we just don't do as creatives. We get excited because we have this skill and this talent, but we don't, what I consider, do the business of the business first. And I get it. Many of our businesses start out of necessity because we either aren't working somewhere, or we need money, and I get that. But at a certain point, you have to just kind of stop and just say, I'm going to devote the next, 90 days or 6 months, whatever is a realistic time frame, to really streamlining, the way you're doing things. And that's developing your contracts and developing your time frames. And the thing about it is, I think as creatives, we're also scared to be truthful about things. And we don't want to admit when something's outside of our skill set. Like I can do web stuff, but I know exactly where that stops, and then I need to bring somebody else in. When it comes to illustration, I know what my limit is, and then like I tapped you in years ago. I'm like, this is beyond my skill set. I need you to do this. But we try to take it all in because you need to make money, and for other reasons. But if you're really serious about your business, you got to have a stop point and calibrate and say, what does my pricing look like? What are the core services that I want to provide? So for me, like I went from a list that was like here down to this. And if you want something beyond that, I can refer you out. But because I don't want to do anything that's not in that band. It's,
I've gotten to that point too.
Yeah. And it really, I think the less you do it, improves your value proposition a bit more. Like, Deb is this type of animator. Kevin is this type of marketer. But really take that, I keep going back to it. Go, take that time and develop your list of services. What are your timelines associated with those? Make sure you're registering your business somewhere so you can start a bank account, because I've lost money.
Right.
I lost a couple, maybe a few $1,000s, like $4,000 or $5,000 deal early on because I didn't have my business registered and they didn't want to write a check to Kevin. And I'm like, but it's me. They're like, no, are you a sole proprietor? Can you show us your paperwork? And I'm like, no. They're like, we gotta go somewhere else. They wanted to have cover. They wanted to have that liability.
Yeah.
But services, contracts, setting up your business entity, having a bank account, having, what is your method of payment, having all those types of things all figured out. And if you're doing things that require some sort of money, so if you're a graphic designer and someone says, I need these pop-up banners, you need to make sure you source your materials before you make that quote and say, you know what, this banner is $80 cost. How much is my time? If I'm spending an hour on it, I may charge $75 or whatever. So I need to charge at least $150 on this, plus the shipping, which means it'll be $200. And tell people this costs you $200 and stick to it. They'll be like, okay, but you can't say, I didn't charge you enough. Or, which I've done, you quote somebody something and you didn't fully vet your vendor. And so now I'm doing a project that I quoted you $200 for, right? And it's to send this pop-up banner. And in my head, I thought $200 should cover it. And so I quoted you that, and you're like, bet, that sounds good. And so now when I go to make the order and I send it off, my bill is $190, which means I'm getting paid $10. And so now I'm mad and I'm ghosting you on your project because I'm only making $10 and I spent 4 hours on it. So that's where all of that unprofessionalism comes from.
You probably went to the website and they had the little base price, but when you get specific, it'd be like, oh no, it's more than that.
And, not factoring in shipping, factoring in the proper shipping. So if I'm saying, hey, I need this, and then I'm like, when do you need it by? And you're like, okay, cool. And now I go to press or submit my order, and it's like, well, shipping to get to LA, in 2 days is $45, and now I got to come out of my pocket because I underquoted. I've been all of those, and but you got to grow and. I have no problem saying, you know what, let me take a minute to get back to you, but I have my base price on how much my services are going to be. But this is a product that I don't normally produce. So if it's a banner or something, or if it's a project that requires a web subscription, let me factor that into my cost and just be realistic with all of it.
So, what are some things that you would like to plug? I know you mentioned your podcast earlier.
That's it right now. That's my focus. Again, I've learned to be focused. Check out the podcast. Call it the League of Leaders. You can go to listen.leagueofleaders.org or look up the League of Leaders on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. I think is that what it's called, or Android Play, whatever it is.
Something.
One of those, whatever you at, look it up. But check it out. I think we have some pretty dope people talking about their experiences. And I think what makes my podcast a little bit more different than others is that everybody that I've had on there has achieved some level of success, and they're relevant in their age. So I'm 41, so they're kind of in that plus or minus 5 band in there. And that's something that I felt we didn't have. Everybody was either way older or you got this group where everybody's super young and everybody's a boss and a mogul and they haven't achieved anything. It's a whole other conversation. So check out the League of Leaders podcast. Other than that, go buy some lapel pins off my website, Kevin Davis Brand.
So plug your social media, your website, all that stuff now.
Yep.
Where can people find you if they want to follow you?
Check me out on Instagram, Kevin Davis Brand. Website, kevindavisbrand.com. And then the League of Leaders. That's it.
All right. So thank you for watching. I want you to like so I know it's real. Comment and tell me how you feel. Subscribe to Seal the Deal and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.